Yes, Chelsea was insecure. She was annoying. She needs therapy. I think we all knew that. I feel like that's the general consensus. But do you know who else also knew that? Jimmy. And you know what else Jimmy also knew? As soon as he saw Chelsea in real life, that he wasn't attracted to her and that he wasn't going to marry her. Now, Chelsea didn't do herself any favors by not listening to what her intuition was screaming at her, but Jimmy absolutely led her on. Now, I knew that Jimmy was doing this the whole time, despite what he was saying, despite him saying that he is attracted to Chelsea, despite him saying that he does love her, and that the fact that he's been fighting for their relationship, even though that remains to be seen. And a lot of people are rooting for Jimmy. A lot of people are saying, well, poor Jimmy, he's dealing with so much. I can't believe he's dealing with Chelsea. But Jimmy was not fooling me. I clocked his slimy, grimy ways straight away. And for me, this episode, when he finally broke up with Chelsea, confirmed that for me because the mask definitely came off. Now, Jimmy and Chelsea definitely needed to break up. They were not compatible, and I feel like everybody knew this was bound to happen. And I think it was very clear that it was probably going to come from Jimmy rather than Chelsea. But the way that Jimmy did it was cold, and it just confirmed to me that he never cared about Chelsea. Because when they got onto the topic of, are we actually going to get married or not, Jimmy could have just come out the gate and say, look, I love you, I have love for you, whatever, the fake things that he's been saying all the time, and say, I just don't think that I'm ready to get married, or I just don't think that we're compatible for marriage. And I wish you well, right? He should have just come out the gate with that. But no, the resentment had clearly built up, and he wanted to embarrass Chelsea one last time just to get that boost for his ego. Because he sat there and he watched Chelsea pour out her heart again and again. And again, when he asked her, do you think that we're ready to get married? He watched her say, yes, we've been through hard times, but, I'm secure in our relationship. And yes, I want to be married to you. For him to turn around and be like, you're perfect, you're everything I want in a wife, but I'm not getting married to you. How twisted is that? Like, why? Especially when he knows how insecure Chelsea is. He knew how much that was going to hurt Chelsea. And yet he still chose to say that. He was going to hurt Chelsea either way. But why rub salt into the wound? Why rub salt into the wound? Chelsea's worst fear is confirmed. And she probably just feels like an idiot right now. Because deep down, she knew Jimmy didn't care about her. She knew Jimmy didn't want to marry her. And she rightfully called him out. But of course, he denies it and then basically confirms it. Like, yeah, I don't want to get married to you. And yeah, you have traits that make you feel like I don't want to get married to you. Now, he's just bringing up stuff. And fair, yes, Jimmy definitely has valid reasons as to, apart from him not loving her and him not being attracted to her. Outside of that, there is valid points as to why Jimmy shouldn't get married to Chelsea. But the points that he was bringing up were just petty. And again, confirm that he didn't care about Chelsea. Because how is he bringing up his whole her being uncomfortable with sleeping with his friend and outing his friend, as being the one that he slept with, was just so disrespectful that he doesn't want to marry her. Like, that is just wild to me that he essentially said that he's picking his friend that he slept with over the person he supposedly wanted to marry. Is that not wild? That's not making sense for somebody who you supposedly love. Because that's what he's claiming the biggest reason is as to why he doesn't want to get married to Chelsea. And Chelsea rightly called him out and basically said, you're just making up an excuse at this point. You just never wanted to get married to me. And he's just doubling down. But you've been caught, Jimmy. You can't be serious. That's your biggest reason. You clearly didn't love the girl. But, he can't really admit that on TV. So this is the reason he's going with. Another reason that he brought up is that because she kept saying that Johnny and Amy were the strongest couple. Like, these are like literally points that he's bringing up as to why he doesn't want to marry Chelsea. Everybody can see that Amy and Johnny by far are the strongest couple. So for him to be putting this in as a fake point, like, be fucking for real, Jimmy. Come up with a better excuse. If you're going to use an excuse, I get it. You're on TV. It's not going to look good if you're telling this girl you don't want to get married to her because you're not sexually attracted to her and you don't find her attractive. But come up with something better. Come up with something better, Jimmy. So yeah, Chelsea just kept clocking him. basically calling him out on all of his disrespectful comments, like basically saying like, it's not all me, what about your disrespect, like basically saying that you have pity sex with me and that I'm too clingy. Like, of course I'm going to be clingy, I'm meant to be your wife. And he's just saying, oh, well, I never said that. Oh, well, you are clingy. And then basically denying the whole thing that she said about the whole sex, the pity sex thing. And it's like, bitch, yeah, you did say that. Basically the point where the mask went off and he was basically just being petty and saying, well, these are all the reasons why, well, you're showing me why I don't want to get married to you now. He kept saying that he loved her and he was fighting for this relationship. But for me, that definitely remained to be seen. Fighting where? Holding on to the fact that he was offended that Chelsea says that she thinks he doesn't love her. But my thing is, like I've been saying in my other videos, he got too defensive on that because he knew he had been caught. He knew he had been found out. His reaction was very telling of that, because if he was genuinely offended because he did in fact love her, he wouldn't be gaslighting her and dismissing her feelings. He would be wanting to reassure her that he did feel those things for her. But he just kept being dismissive and defensive. That to me was very telling that, you know, Chelsea was right. Another thing we also have to consider is that there is another incentive for Jimmy to have stuck around and dealt with Chelsea for as long as he did. Jimmy made it to the last episode. For every episode the cast gets featured in, they get £1,000. So he made it to 12 episodes and he's going to make the reunion as well. So, you know, to make it to 12 episodes, that's 12 grand in Jimmy's pocket. And then on top of that, his expenses are paid for, his food is paid for, his travel is paid for, and a whole all-inclusive holiday paid for as well in a 5-star resort. Would you deal with Chelsea for 12 grand and a lot of your expenses paid for and a whole holiday? Yes, you fucking would. And yes, Jimmy would, and yes, Jimmy did. Jimmy used Chelsea, Jimmy led her on. Ultimately, Chelsea shouldn't have been dealing with Jimmy as well. But Chelsea is insecure, she's vulnerable, and Jimmy took advantage of that for his own gain. But let me know what you think. Do you think Jimmy was genuine? Or